The curve fillet command is a way for you to create a small fillet curve in between two other NURBS curves. Now, here's how this works. Let me start off by creating two curves, and in this case I'll make them intersect, like so. And let me go ahead and hide out the grid to make things a little bit easier to see, so we can see our two curves. I'll select one curve, then another curve. Let's go to Edit Curves, grab Curve Fillet, and I'll reset all of our settings and click Apply. And here's what we are awarded, a little tiny fillet curve that makes a nice rounded section in between these two curves. Very, very cool. Now, to start off with the options for this, we can control basically what we end up with as far as that little fillet curve is concerned. We can start off with trim. And what this is going to do, as you can see, is cut away all of the extensions of our original curves beyond where the fillet takes place. So it's a nice way to just kind of round that out, like so. Now, we can choose to join these. So when I hit Apply, you'll notice now we're given one whole curve where they're all attached to one another. Very handy. And, of course, we can choose to keep the original curves if we need them for any sort of historical editing and whatnot. So let's go ahead and switch all of that off. We have two different construction methods for our fillet curve. One is circular, which will give us a nice circular arc that is going to basically combine our two curves or make a little, the fillet right in between the two. Let's go ahead and leave this. Well, I'm sorry. I was thinking about turning on trim, but I don't think I will. And if I go ahead and apply this, we have access to the radius here inside the fillet curve node. So as I increase the radius, you'll notice that the fillet curve is not as sharp. And as I decrease the radius, it gets sharper, drawn more toward the apex where the two of these curves intersect. Now, as a rule, these curves don't necessarily need to intersect. I can grab this CV here, and we can drag it off to the side so there's no longer an intersection between the two. Grab the two curves and apply, and we still get a circular fillet at a place where they kind of like in between their theoretical intersection in between the two. So you can still work with it that way. Now, the other construction method we have is freeform. And if you select this, like just one curve and another curve, and click freeform, what you're going to end up with, for starters, is a fillet curve that connects between the two beginning points of the curve. The true nature of the freeform operation, I'm going to go ahead and undo back until these curves are intersecting one another. The true nature of the freeform construction method is so that you can actually designate where on each curve you would like the fillet to be connected. For example, I can right mouse and choose curve point, and we'll say this point along this curve, and then come over here, curve point again, hold down shift, and we'll choose this point along this curve. Now, I have freeform checked, so I can hit apply, and notice my fillet curve attaches between those 2 points. So it's a very nice way to create a new bit of curvature. Like, for example, if I was to use that and click trim and join, I can get a very nice new curve using just these two markers to control where I'm going to start blending one into the other. Now, our freeform type basically comes in two flavors. It has tangent and blend. Tangent is going to pull the apex, or the highest point of our fillet curve, closer toward the actual intersection of these two curves, be it if there is a real intersection, or where they would basically intersect if they were to run on forever. So if I hit apply, boom, the fillet curve is being pulled a bit more toward the apex here to this intersection, where if I were to click blend, and I'll hit undo and apply, the fillet curve is pulled a little closer to the midpoint in between these two curves. So it's just a way to control where you want your fillet curve to end up when all is said and done. Let me maybe get a bit more of a dramatic example. We'll switch off trim for now. And let's grab this point, and I'll start off with tangent and hit apply, and you can see how the curve is being pulled more toward this corner. So if I come back over here and we switch this over to, let's say, blend, and I hit Z and apply again, notice how the fillet is now pulled a little bit more toward the actual points that we have. Now you can switch on blend control, and this is how you can control the shape of your fillet curve when all is said and done after it's already been created. This is going to activate our depth and bias attributes here inside the channel box, or also in the attribute editor. But you have to make sure this is checked. For example, if I don't have this checked and I hit apply, I can play with depth and bias all day and I get nothing. they're still there, they're just non-functional, which can be a little bit frustrating. Go ahead and check it now, and we get the exact same curve, but now our depth and our bias function a bit differently. For example, I can increase my depth, and because we were set to tangent, just to make sure, I'm sorry, we're set to blend, we are pulling a bit more forward like so, just controlling the depth of the actual curve fillet. We can set to bias, and this is going to lean the fillet more toward one curve or another, and I mean our two original curves that we are creating. So a bias of -1 will pull us more toward curve number 1. A bias of +1 will pull us more toward curve number 2, like so. So very cool. Now, finally, we have curve parameter 1 and curve parameter 2. Now, these control where on the curve the fillet is actually going to take place. And you can increase and decrease these. Notice as I increase the parameterization that we start to control where along the curve that fillet is taking place. Now, if I slow down my virtual slider, this motion will become a lot smoother. So let me grab my curve parameter 1, and you'll notice as I increase it for the first curve, we are attaching that fillet back here at 0. There you go. And I can go negative, and I can kind of extend on toward infinity, which is a very interesting effect. And I can control curve parameter 2. So if you actually wanted the fillet to take place on the far side of the intersection, like so, you could increase the parameterization on both of them and get a fillet like so. So that's really all there is to it. The curve fillet, the fillet curve, if I get the name straight. Curve fillet. Third time's a charm. Is a way for you to create this little fillet curve that we've been talking about in between two curves, using either curve points or just using the natural intersection between two curves. Very useful for creating a rounded shape out of two original curves, as you've already seen. And that is going to wrap things up for this video. Thanks a lot.